the 24th of May 2019, the Queen of Peace Church. Brother Roy giving the third talks about the Virgin Mary.
Let's now listen to a passage from the Gospel of John that deals with Mother Mary, and then begin our session. Yes.
Standing close to Jesus' cross were his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. Jesus saw his mother and the disciple he loved standing there. So he said to his mother, "He is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "She is your mother." From that time, the disciple took her to live in his home.
Lord, our loving Father, we thank and praise you for this evening. Thank you for all your gifts to us, the gift of life, the gift of our Catholic faith, the gift of your Blessed Mother, your word and sacraments. You freely call us to faithful discipleship through all your gifts. As we reflect on the personality of our Mother, Blessed Virgin Mary, as we reflect on her feast, may we be encouraged to imitate her more and more. Bless each and every one who has spared the time to be present for this session. May they all experience the powerful intercession of the Blessed Mother and walk in the path of discipleship as she walked. We ask of you through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Blessed Virgin Mary, our Mother, Queen of Peace, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So welcome to all of you once again. In the first session, we were reflecting on Mary, our Mother, in history and tradition. More technical words were used to see how the devotion to Mary over the years developed, and especially in the fathers of the church like St. Ambrose, St. Jerome, St. Augustine, how all of them reflected on Mary and showed us the way. Last class we saw about the various qualities or virtues of Mary as manifested in the Bible, in the Gospel especially. Now in this session, I want to focus on the Marian Feasts, various Marian Feasts, and then we will go year by year how it can lead us forward. That is my intention. If there is time, some of you have already some canonical questions. I am basically a canonist by profession. So anything on the law of the church, in the second part also you can clarify with me. what the church teaches towards the end. Towards the end, when there is sufficient time, you can always make use of me towards the end. In between also, feel free to interact with me. I'm only happy. I'm really grateful to God for this opportunity. Maybe I will go by the liturgical calendar, how the feasts of Mary are celebrated. One thing you should know, there are different kinds of grades when we celebrate the liturgical calendar. I don't know how many of you know it, but now at least it is time to know also what are those feasts and all. Okay. For instance, in the liturgy, we have, for example, ferial days or weekdays, ordinary days. Most of the time, for example, we have 34 years in the ordinary time. The weekdays, when there is no feast, that is a kind of the first stage of the liturgical celebration. Secondly, we have optional memoria. Optional memoria. Maybe it may be celebrated or may not be. You know the meaning of the word optional. Then there is obligatory memoria. Then you have feast. Then you have solemnity. So this you should know. Today, so sometimes a feast. When we don't know how much importance the church gives, we will simply use the word, today is a feast day, today is a feast day. Every day is not the same. So today, for example, we celebrated weekday in the liturgical year, this evening Mass, like that, weekday in a liturgical year. So maybe optional memory. Any doubt regarding this? When you don't interact, then you may tend to sleep. So, so ask me if you don't understand. Pretending to understand when you don't understand is very dangerous. When you don't understand is very dangerous. My altar servers are really very good, very clever in asking me questions, outside and inside. I think feel free. Do you know this? Today is what is today is optional memoria. This one, especially I'm sure you would have been taught like that. Like that, with regard to Mary also, we have this kind of distinction. Marian Feasts also. So we have, for example, some of the greatest feasts of Mother Mary. January 1st is Mary, the Mother of God. January 1st. It is a solemnity. Solemnity. Then August 15th, the Assumption of Mother Mary is a solemnity, the greatest feast. December 8th, the Immaculate Conception. December. December is like that. Also the Annunciation, that is Feast of the Lord. March the 25th, also a solemnity. So these are solemnities, the highest feasts related to Mother Mary. There are some others which are feasts. Some others may be obligatory memoria, some others may be optional memoria. And then every Saturday also we can take a votive Mass of Our Lady. Saturdays also we can use votive Mass. There are so many choices in the liturgical books from the common. So that also we can take. That we have to know. Okay. So is it clear to you regarding the dates of any liturgical? Okay, to check your general knowledge, what are the other solemnities in our liturgical calendar? What are the big feasts? First, starting from January. January, any other solemnity? Okay. In February, any solemnity is there? Presentation, not a solemnity. Not a solemnity. Okay. In March, the Annunciation. The Annunciation. April, normally Easter will fall that time. That is the greatest solemnity. Solemnity. By the way, every Sunday is solemnity. Every Sunday is solemnity. Okay. Then May, is there any solemnity? Yes.
Is the whole Easter season a solemnity, or is it just
No, particular days. All Easter season is days of joy and celebration. That's another thing. We are speaking about days of solemnities. Okay. Then May. May we don't have any. Then in June. June. Okay, Sacred Heart. Then you've forgot my heavenly patron. Solemnity of Saint Peter and Paul. It is a great feast. I mean, not ordinary feast, great feast. Solemnity. June we have one more. One more solemnity. Corpus Christi, okay, must be Sunday or the Thursday, it is solemnity, okay. Then another feast. Birth of John the Baptist. Birth of John the Baptist, June 24. Birth of John the Baptist. Then in July, no, for us in India, July 3rd is solemnity because St. Thomas, because he is supposed to have come to India. For India, July 3rd is solemnity for India. Then August, Assumption of Our Lady. September, no solemnity as such. Then they may come under other three. Okay, September, October also no solemnity. Sundays are solemnity. November, All Saints Day. Yes, All Saints Day is a solemnity. And then December, Christmas. Christmas is the solemnity. These are called the solemnities. One more you did not say. In March, Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph. Saint Joseph is a solemnity. March 19th is a solemnity. So you understand now? Okay. Now we take the first feast of Mother Mary. Some brief reflection. Then we go to January 1st, as you know, is Mary, the Mother of God. We already discussed about it. Some are saying Mary is not Mother of God, Mother of the human Jesus, like that they were saying. We cannot distinguish like this, make a dichotomy between the humanness and divineness of Jesus. Anyhow, she gave flesh. It doesn't mean Mary is Mother of the flesh, but Mary is Mother of God, Mother of the second person of the Trinity. So that is why this feast was celebrated. The origin we have always discussed, especially the famous, one of the important councils for Mary is Council of Ephesus 431. Never forget it. Council of Ephesus 431. Mary was solemnly declared by the Ecumenical Council as the Mother of God. As the Mother of God. So that is the origin of this feast. Mary's greatness is in her relationship with Jesus. Root and source of all dignity and honor and grace is Mary's relationship with Jesus as his mother. The oldest feast in the Roman Rite. In course of time, sometimes because it was on the 8th day, January 1st, circumcision of Jesus and naming of Jesus New Year Day. All these things are combined on January 1st. You know it, isn't it? Day in which Jesus was named a New Year Day. But amidst all this, we should not forget the very first day itself. The church wants us to honor Mary, to seek her protection. So especially the first reading that day, from the book of Numbers, may the Lord bless you, may the Lord show His face on you, all that of the very first day. But the second reading from the Galatians, on Mary. He was born of a woman, that is mentioned in reference to Mary. And then the next gospel reading is how the shepherds are coming to Mary. This is the day's feast. So every January 1st, we should especially acknowledge, together with the whole church, that Mary is the Mother of God. That is the feast on that day. Mary, Mother of God, first day of the year. The prayer, for example, opening prayer says like this: may we always profit by the prayers of the Virgin Mother, for you bring salvation through your Son. Prayers of the Virgin Mother. So focus is, salvation is coming to us through Jesus. But Virgin Mother is mentioned in the prayer. That is the first feast. So anything on about this feast? Do you really know that everything is centered on Mother Mary on that day? Mary, Mother of God feast, Is it a day of obligation? Is it a day of obligation? No. So what does the canon law say? January 1st is not a day of obligation. Are you sure about it? Yes, very good. You are right. You are right. For Singapore, it is not a day of obligation. For India also, it is not a day of obligation. But by universal canon law, it is a day of obligation. It is a day of obligation. By universal. Wait for me to say it. So it gives number of days, more than 10, 11 days, as the day of obligation. At the same time, canon law says, the National Conference of Bishops can reduce some things or can shift some days of obligation to Sundays. So in that way, it is not a day of obligation. For some countries, it may be a day of obligation because universal law says it should be a day of obligation. Bishops are given the power. For example, in India, we have only 2 days, weekdays, as day of obligation. One is Christmas, the other is Assumption, because it happens to be our Independence Day, so government holiday, so that is also, church also has accepted 2 weekdays only are days of obligation. Some other feasts, India, we have transferred it to Sunday. For example, Epiphany is celebrated on the 6th. But in India, and many other countries, for second Sunday of January is celebrated as Epiphany. Corpus Christi in India is shifted to Sunday. Ascension in India is shifted to Sunday. And then some obligations are removed by the bishops, national bishops can remove it. For example, St. Joseph, Feast of St. Joseph is not a day of obligation. And Peter and Paul is not a day of obligation. Is not a day of obligation. Immaculate Conception is not a day of obligation. So these are the feasts that are not days of, and also November 1st, All Saints, not a day of obligation. Not a day of obligation. But these are days of obligation in the canon law, but the canon law itself gives power to reduce the days or shift some days to Sundays. So you understand, that is outside Mary. Just I want you to be knowledgeable about this. So days of obligation, what are they? The other day I visited Navena church, then they immediately put there somewhere, days of obligation, like that it was put there. Okay. We come to the next feast, that is presentation of the Lord. So it is the feast of the Lord, but related to Mary. When is it? So some of them don't know. Here, nobody. When is the feast of the presentation of the Lord? 2nd February. 2nd February is the feast of the presentation of the Lord. So actually from the 1970 onwards only, the title was changed. Earlier it was Purification of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Before 1970, this December 2nd was celebrated as a purification of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Now the more concentration is on the feast of the Lord. That is it. Then you know, there was a lady by name Egeria who traveled to Holy Land in the 4th century. A lady, Egeria. So he sees how this particular feast was celebrated very pompously in the Holy Land. On the 40th day after Epiphany, people went to the Church of Anastasis or Resurrection. And then with special magnificence, they celebrated as though it were the feast of Easter. You know what happened? Mary and Joseph go to the temple and then offer the child to God. And then Simeon came there. Who else came? Anna came. Anna came there. Simeon took the child in his hand and prophesied. He said, "My eyes have seen the salvation." And then that is the night prayer every day we are asked to say. And then Anna, a holy woman, like many of the women in our own parish, doing a lot of work, hard work. So she was the first woman, forerunner for all our parishioners who clean the church, who work hard for the church, who decorate the church, the woman Anna. She also prophesied about this. And then traditionally this feast is celebrated with lighted candles because Jesus is the light of the world. So that is this feast which is important. From in Rome, from the 7th century onwards, it was celebrated, and then it moved to Constantinople, and then there was always procession. Initially they had black vestment during this time, then it became purple. Then what is the meaning? Meeting of the community of the church with Christ. That is the main meaning of this feast. We who carry these candles into your church, come with joy into the light of glory. We welcome you, O God, in the midst of your people. These are some of the prayers of this feast. February the 2nd. February the 2nd. Any comment on this feast, the second feast, February 2nd? Earlier it was purification of Mother Mary. Purification of Mother Mary. One of the important points I already mentioned is, this feast also shows two important points for me. I always say, being a canonist, I will say, in this context, it said everything according to the law. Singaporeans are law-abiding citizens. You have to follow the law. Twice in this passage it is said, Mary and Joseph did everything according to the law. Second point is, don't try to show Mary as a very, very rich woman. Mary is a poor woman because she could offer only 2 turtle doves. And thirdly, Mary keeps silence during the whole incident. She doesn't speak. At Annunciation she spoke. At the birth she did not speak. Here she did not speak. At the foot of Calvary she did not speak. Mary, a silent woman. That's why recently I read an article about Mary. Mary, mystic and prophet. We are all called to be mystics and prophets. Mystics are those who reflect on the word of God. Mary is also mystic. Mary is also prophet. Prophet who announced proclaim the greatness of God. That is by singing the Magnificat. By singing the Magnificat, mystic and prophet. Any other thing you want to know about this? Please, any doubt, feel free to ask. Yes, yes, very good.
Father, what does Mary need to be purified of?
What is Mary to be?
Purified of.
Okay. So according to the Jewish tradition, a woman who gives birth is supposed to be unclean. According to the Jewish tradition, which is there in the book of Leviticus and so on, so she has to be cleaned before coming to the for coming into the presence of God. There are also different dates. Male child 40 days, like that. So they followed everything according to that. So-called Mosaic law, Jewish law. The woman was supposed to be unclean. So now that thought is very much gone. For example, even the regular process of women having their menstruation, that was also considered, for example, unclean. It is a regular thing. Now there is greater understanding of these ordinary facts. But then it was considered in the past that it was unclean. For health consideration, they did not know so much of hygiene those days. So in order to protect them from infection and so on, there were some of the laws in the Jewish tradition, which today may look like somewhat a mockery for us. We cannot judge the past in the light of the present knowledge. That's what I would say. So your question is right. Why it is called purification of Mary? Why she should be purified? What did she do? That is the right question. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Is that also the second of February, what they call Holy Innocents? Is that the same day?
Holy Innocents.
Yes.
No, that is the 28th of December, where the children were being recalled, the children were put to death by Herod. No, that is Holy Innocents. Holy Innocents is February 28th. Okay. December 28th. Yes. No, that 40 is different. This 40 is for the cleanliness. Yeah. Here this 40 is more negative. The usual 40 is always positive, completeness, fullness. So 40, the significance of 40 is also important. Yes, okay. Good. Well, yes.
What do they do when you say to purify? I mean, like women have menses every month. People have to flop.
What I am saying, you should not do it. Think about, you should remain away from others like that. You should not, with that situation, you should not enter the temple. These are old traditions. I don't stand by it. I don't stand by it. They said you are supposed to be unclean during those days. One of the things that not allowing the women during the time, even now in India, for example, big controversy regarding allowing women to the temple of Lord Ayyappa. Ayyappa is a celibate god. Celibate god, you should not go. A woman can go. Either a girl before reaching puberty, she is allowed to go. And then after this thing stops, she can go. But she should not go in between. Now Supreme Court ordered that all women also can go. You cannot distinguish. Our Indian Supreme Court ordered. And then against that, all the people rising and revolt, even the Supreme Court said the local government is not able to enforce the judgment. All are equal, all can go to the temple. That is the problem there. So like that. No, I don't want to go into that. No, I don't stand by it. But it was considered that those times that they should not enter the temple and so on. If you read the Old Testament, you will know some of these things. For everything, for example, a leper, for example, you know. A leper was supposed to close his mouth and go away, unclean, unclean. And as soon as he sees the people, he's supposed to run away. and even ring the bell that he is there, that nobody should come near him. These are all laws of cleanness of the Old Testament. We do not stand by all of them now. Now the people have their own laws. Immediately they themselves close them, that there will be infection, so on and so forth. Okay, we will leave that. We go to the next point. Very good. Like that, to make make others to get up, you should ask questions. I don't think like that. Okay, when I asked some of the students to ask questions, one student asked, "How are you, Father?" Not that. How are you, Father? ¿Cómo está? No, not that kind of question. Okay. I go to the next. Yeah, this is a very beautiful feast, that purification. Then coming to the temple, so many things are there in that. Next we come to the Annunciation of the Lord. So it is also, this solemnity I said, but of course Annunciation was given to Mary. So it is also a Marian feast. But now for the church, primarily Feast of the Lord. March 25th. March 25th. In these days we especially remember Mother Mary. Till the year 1969, it was a feast of Mary. Only in 1969 it became the feast of the Lord during the liturgical reform after the Vatican II. We should know the March 25th. This feast was the feast of Mary before 1969. Only for the 50 years now, 60 years now, it is feast of the Lord. Before that, feast of Mary. Often overshadowed by the Lent, this feast, because it comes in the Lenten season. We do not know its importance. Sometimes we should not have solemnity like that, but it is still retained. And then Psalm 18, for example, Christ is the rising sun, rising in the east. A mosaic at St. Peter's Church, already in the 3rd century Rome, shows Christ as the sun. That is the beginning of it. So the sun begins on March 25th. So in that way, that is the origin of the feast. For example, they speak of equinox. Autumn equinox, John the Baptist. Spring equinox, Jesus Christ. That is the feast of this Annunciation. We should know, though it is today the feast of the Lord, earlier it was feast of Mother Mary, because we know it. Yes.
Father, is there any difference besides the difference in focus of the feast of Annunciation earlier in the focus of Mary and after that focus of God? Is there any difference in the liturgical celebration besides the difference in focus?
Yes. See, this we will know when we look at the liturgical prayers, for example. Liturgical prayer. See, the author of salvation is Christ the Lord. And Mary collaborated in bringing him to the author of salvation. So, the collaborative role of the Mary is rightly recognized. That's why sometimes they think, see, in the process of the development of Marian devotion, we again and again saw we should not consider Mary as goddess. So Christ should be given his due as God. That is the thing why they changed it. So more focus on the Lord. His birth was announced. Earlier the focus was to whom it was announced. The focus was to whom it was announced. Now, whose birth was announced is the focus. That's why Vatican II, during the liturgical reform, changed. But then, we know again and again, we will see who is announced, to whom it was announced. That is the thing. We have reflected on this passage of Annunciation again and again during the last thing. Each word calls for us for reflection. So, before I always say one of my first points in the homily is, before Mary is asked to be Mother of God, we are asked to believe three things. First, rejoice. First message is, we should be happy people. Second message is, we should believe that God is with us. Third message is that we are blessed by God. So these three things are very important. Before Mary was asked to be the Mother of God, Mary was asked to believe these three things. So every time we hear this and then we forget it. Are you happy and make others happy? That is the question. And secondly, are you aware of the presence of God? God is with you. Why are you so much shaken up? The Lord will not let you down. You are specially blessed by God, don't forget. Like that you can reflect on the passage of Annunciation quite a lot. So that is it with regard to the Annunciation of the Lord. Then I come to May 31st. What is May 31st? May 31st, I am not pleasantly surprised, sadly surprised. I'm shocked, you do not know. May 31st. Now it's going to come, no? Within 3 or 4 days. Now some we have found out in the mobile already.
Visitation.
Visitation. Yes, found out. Thank you for finding it out fast. So May 31st is the feast of visitation. It is a feast. In the degree, it is not a solemnity, it is a feast. It is not a memorial. So second level, highest level is solemnity. Second level is, it is feast. Feast of visitation. Visitation. It is very much biblical. This feast was not there in the church till the 13th century. Only from the 13th century onwards. I like this feast very much, even though it is a feast. Visitation. So many reflections on the feast of visitation. It is there. And then it was earlier celebrated as on 2nd July, deposition of the holy robe of the Theotokos in Constantinople. I myself don't understand the meaning of it. Deposition of the holy robe of the Mother of God. Maybe they found some old dress of Mother Mary and then they went and buried it. They were commemorating it. We do not know. But that was how it was celebrated earlier. In 1263, the Franciscans introduced this feast in the calendar. In the 13th century, that is in 1263, the feast of visitation was introduced by the Franciscans. The Council of Basel in 1441 also wanted it to be celebrated, and in 1484, Pope Sixtus IV also wanted this feast to be celebrated everywhere. And then it shows us the history of salvation. Of course, the reading is very beautiful. First chapter 39 to 56. Once again, last time we reflected some of the beautiful reflections on this visitation. I like it very much, for example. First of all, one thing is Mary went in haste. So even the Holy Father, John Paul II said, she went in haste to help her cousin Elizabeth. Everybody says it is a feast of charity. My own scripture professor, Paul Legrand, said it is not feast of charity, even if many people say that. It is the feast of carrying the Lord to others. It is the feast, Mary is conceived. So it is the feast of carrying the Lord to others. Receive the word and carry him to others. Of course, it must necessarily involve charity, helping, greeting, being with them, solidarity, concern, yes. When you receive the Lord, remember that every time you receive the Holy Eucharist, go in peace. You have to go like Mary. Mary received Jesus in her womb and then went to Elizabeth. You received Jesus in your heart. Go to the people. What a wonderful thing. Go to the people. Be Mary to Elizabeth at home. Be Mary to Elizabeth at home. And then, as I said, she went there and greeted. Very beautiful explanation. Greeted. And then Elizabeth being filled with the Spirit. How could Elizabeth speak all these things? Because she was filled with the Holy Spirit. Filled with the Holy Spirit. Recognize the Mother of God. She recognized the Mother of God. Her son and the womb recognized the Mother of God and the Lord. Salutes the Lord. Little John in the womb salutes Jesus already. Mother of my Lord, how I am privileged. We should have the attitude of Elizabeth also. Being humble before the Lord and His Mother. Being humble before the Lord and His Mother. Exalting the Lord and His Mother. Exalting the Lord. Glorifying the Lord and His Mother. Elizabeth, wonderful woman. Conceived at an old age, but then recognized the Lord. And then above all, and Mary now speaks. Exalts the Lord. As I said, exalt is thanking the Lord. So thanks, the word thanks is not often used in Hebrew, but rather more it is, I exalt the Lord, I glorify the Lord, I praise the Lord. That is the meaning. If you feel the presence of God, God has done something to you, praise the Lord. What a marvelous thing. Last time I told you, the whole beatitude is there in the song. Matthew's Gospel, 5th chapter, 1 to 12 is contained here. Like that, Luke's Gospel, 6th chapter, the beatitude and the woes are also contained here indirectly. That is the beautiful hymn of history of salvation, singing the history of salvation. And Mary remained there for 3 months and came away, giving good news, giving Jesus, carrying Jesus. In our seminary, for example, there is a beautiful statue, Mary holding the baby Jesus in both her hands. You might have seen that statue like this now. And then I asked our rector, Father Joseph Francis, Father, why you have kept it in our grotto? Usually others search it. He told me, I like that explanation. Mary is giving Jesus to us. Holding both the hands, baby, and then she is giving Jesus to us. So our occasion is, all the seminarians must think that they have to give Jesus to the world. All the priests who come into this formation place must think that they have to give Jesus to the world. Very beautiful, that picture. I don't know that Mary, whether you have seen. I will take a photo in our seminary grotto and then send it to you again. Send to Father Tim. Okay, that's it. The visitation piece, very, very dear to me. I have to speak. I take it many times for Jubilee celebration. Always this gospel is taken. Jubilee celebration, the gospel is taken. Once I was reading a commentary, it spoke about both the women as excellent examples of listening. The modern man's problem is that they don't listen, they want to talk only. That's the problem. Going on talking and talking. So those days it was a land phone, now mobile phone. Now one lady picked up the land phone and then was talking and talking, it seems, for 15 minutes. The husband asked, usually you take half an hour, how did you finish in 15 minutes? How did you today finish in 15 minutes? Usually when a call comes, you take half an hour to talk. She said, today it was wrong number. Wrong number itself is 15 minutes. You can imagine. People want to talk. Silence. Silence. As I said, when I celebrated Mass with the Holy Father on September 10th, I had the privilege. First I was told, sorry, we allow you only when there is Jubilee, like this and all, we cannot allow like that. The previous night I had a phone call. as an exceptional case, we permit you, since you have got so many priests like that. Then I went there. Then the secretary, liturgical secretary to the Holy Father told me, after the homily, the Holy Father will sit there. So you all should sit silently. Here in our church, the holy silence. What is silence? It is put there now often. Sacred silence. Sacred silence is put. Sacred silence. Mary is the example of sacred silence. Like that, the Holy Father, after his homily, went and sat for more than 2 minutes. Only then he got up to celebrate his, continue his Mass in Martha's chapel. I liked it so much that I will never forget for life. Silence required for Mass. We are living in the world of noise. People hate silence. Simply make noise. I am for oral prayers, loud, okay. But then also have sufficient silence. Stand still before the Lord. Mary gives. See, in this particular text, it is like that. Then greetings, last week I already told you. Okay, I come to the next feast, next one. I skip some of them, maybe I will come to after that. The Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. August 15th, very important. Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It was defined as a dogma in November 1950. November 1950. Munificentesimus Deus, with that document. The Latin document, don't be shocked, Father, you are using big words, Latin words. Don't say that. Because official documents are called by the first 2 letters of Latin. First 2 words of Latin. As I said last time, Roman Gentiles. This is the dogma of Assumption was defined by the Holy Father. Briefly, I will say, just listen. Mary, the Mother, Blessed Virgin Mary, Immaculate Mother of God, ever Virgin, after finishing her course of life on earth, was taken up in body and soul to heavenly glory. This is what this definition of the dogma says. Definition of the dogma says. In 1950, 50 plus 19, 70 years ago, 69 years ago, Mary's Assumption was defined as a dogma. We have to believe it. Believe it. What the Holy Father said, it is very interesting here. When Mary died, he did not use. Some people say even Mary did not die at all. Not any death like. So very diplomatically, or we can say very carefully, the Holy Father, when this earthly course of life, finishing her course of life on earth. That is the word. Finishing her earthly course of life. So she was taken up like that. This feast had various names in the past. And then what is important is, this is not to be considered as the privilege of Mary. It should not be used to isolate her from the rest of the humanity. She was taken up. She did not lay aside salvific duties, but by maternal love cares for her brothers and sisters, interceding for us, exercising her motherhood in heaven. She overcomes death like her son. That's how we understand this feast of Assumption. In other words, the Assumption of Mother Mary gives us hope and consolation. Mary has gone to heaven. We will also are meant for heaven. So that is the feast of Solemnity of Assumption, defined as a dogma in 1950. In fact, in the last 2 centuries, only 2 dogmas. One is this, the other is Immaculate Conception. Anything on the Assumption? Another reason for this is right from the early church they speak about, they had a feast like dormition of Mother Mary or sleeping of Mother Mary. They didn't call it death of Mother Mary. Right from the 4th century onwards, they had this feast. Anything?
I have one question,
Yes.
but it's not.
Not regarding assumption.
Yeah,
Okay.
we go back to the presentation of the Lord. It was known that Mary was technically exempt from purification, right?
Yes.
Can we clarify what does that actually mean to be technically exempt? Therefore, she was just following the Mosaic law for obedience, right? So what does it mean to be technically exempt? I mean, what did she not go
Okay.
through?
Our focus is now is every male child. See, there are two things. The first one is the woman being unclean during certain phase of her life or certain days. The belief of certain societies, even now. That is one thing. Okay. Then it is completely another that offering of the firstborn to the Lord in remembrance of their release from Egypt, in remembrance of the freedom. So, they are coming for both. One is cleansing, the other is mainly for offering the Lord. You see, now the focus is on the presentation of the Lord to the presentation of the Lord in the temple. That is the main thing. So, I am not scholarly enough to answer that, but let us focus on how all of us belong to the Lord. I like it also, even in the book of Samuel, no? That beautiful passage, how Samuel is offered by the mother. Samuel, 1st chapter, I think 23rd, 24th verse. For him I prayed, the Lord gave me, he belongs to him. So I give this oil, this flour, this oxen, and then I want to, he belongs to the Lord, and I give him back to the Lord. That's how Samuel's mother offered him. In 1 Samuel, very, very beautiful passage that is. So the firstborn belongs to the Lord. You give to the Lord and get back by giving this offering. Get back your child by giving the offering. So I tell the people, remember your children are God's gift to you. They belong to the Lord. Lead them in faith. So many are worried about tuition. My son has tuition. But then their own religious knowledge, he may be having exceptional job. But then he doesn't know to lead a good family life. He doesn't know to respect others. Can't have time for others. He can become a wreck with all the money, with all the jobs. That's what can happen. Children belong to the Lord. Seeing to it that they grow in the Lord is very important. Here, this is a gesture by which so that's why the purification from purification of Mary, now presentation of the Lord in the temple, that has come to that. Okay. Regarding that, I do not agree. See, some of the things, for example, you know how the Old Testament, they are not supposed to eat pork, no? So how many people died, gave their life for them. So we have to understand the context of today. Why, in what context it was said. So in Bible timeline, you will understand much more of it. Ask more questions and they will explain to you. Okay. Now I go to the next. Okay. Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So already 1 hour over. So we will take. See, one thing is, I like that prayer, especially both on Ascension and on Assumption. You have to pay attention to the preface, the big prayer that the priest says before the Holy Holy. That is called a preface. Please read it, it gives us a lot of hope. Please listen to it, it gives us a lot of hope. See, in the Feast of Ascension, for example, which we are going to celebrate, the head has gone there, we also should follow. So it was fitting that you took your mother, body and soul, to heaven. It gives us hope, consolation. We also want to have, reminding us in our pilgrimage of faith that we are all united with Mary, our elder sister. Our mother, elder sister, first and preeminent member of the church. We also have to go. That one is very much explained. We have to pay attention to that. Okay, so we'll have 5 minutes break. Too long sitting is not good. Please, please stand up. And before going, I am giving you a riddle. If all of you join together and give the right answer, you will get a prize. Okay, please listen to the riddle. Not riddle, it is a simple thing, really happened, no trick in that. Okay, one girl went to buy some pair of slippers, ordinary shoes, no? So it cost $80. It cost $80, okay. Then she took a $100 note. $100 note. So the shopkeeper did not have change. So shopkeeper got the note and then went to his neighbor, florist, and then changed and came back and gave the girl what? $20 and also the shoes. $20 and the shoes to wake you up from sleep, okay? But all should give only one answer, the leader. So now the girl is a tourist, she disappeared. Now the problem came in the evening. The florist comes and tells the shoe shop owner, you gave me $100 note and then got change, but that is invalid note. Invalid note. And then she disappeared, so he got a good $100 note for him. In the meantime, he had other notes, 50, 20, 10 like that. He got his 100. Now my question is, how much did the shoe owner lose altogether? The girl went away with a $20 bill and $80 worth shoes. And then the neighbor received $100 evening. So you can discuss among yourself, get up after the break, who gives the answer? Melanie, you are going to give the answer. Group answer.